Hi, this is Jerome Pepin. The purpose of this video is to give our current users a heads up to some pretty significant changes that we've made to the customer documents. The user interface is quite a bit different. All the functionality is there, plus there's additional functionality. So it's probably going to take a little bit of adjustment to get used to the new look, but I think frankly after about 15-20 minutes I think you're going to absolutely love it because it's so much better than what we had before. So in terms of the new features, you have the ability to add a customer PO to a work order or sales order. We see this as being primarily used with sales orders. We have a flat rate labor capability on squawks. So if you do pedostatic checks and you charge $300 a check regardless of how long it takes, flat rate's perfect answer for that issue. We have the ability to define upfront part pricing overrides, we call it. Some of you have your inventory fully priced and others do not. So with this upfront pricing override, you can set the price for that particular part per work order. So you can, if you want, have different prices for different customers. Customer documents has all the same functionality as before, but it's radically simplified, but it is quite different. So that's what this video principally covers. We have a user library for customer terms and payment methods, so those are drop downs. You know, your typical drop down, net 30, net 10, net 1, COD, payment in advance. So you have the ability to define a list of those terms that you use, and that way you're very consistent with how your documents are laid out and what kind of terms you're offering your customers. You have more control over the document formatting. There's convenient access to all the generated docs without having to jump into the history. And invoices can be generated directly from quotes. So in the past you could spend a bunch of time creating the perfect quote, and when you went to invoice it, you kind of had to redo all of that work to create the perfect invoice. Well, now an invoice can be generated directly from that quote, and you'll see how that works. I think you're going to absolutely love it because it just makes life so much easier. And finally, you can issue invoices and quotes as you always could, but now you can not only delete them, which is a capability that exists now, but you can also unissue them. So that adds a lot of flexibility to how you use the system. All right, let's get started. We're replacing Mr. Anderson's transponder, and we're also going to do a pedostatic check. So let's add the squawk for the pedostatic check right now. We're estimating 2 hours, but we charge pedostatic checks at a flat rate of $300 a pop. So I'm putting in the flat rate value, and we've now defined our 2 squawks. I'm going in to add the part number that I'll be installing into his aircraft. And I want you to notice that I'm going to set a pricing override on this unit at $1,850. I could have also applied a discount, either a percent or fixed amount, against the $1,850, but I'm choosing not to. And this is accessed via the $ action icon associated with the part number. Okay, let's now jump into customer documents and take a look at some of the biggest changes in this release. The first thing we're going to do is tell Amy if we're using work order estimate data or work order actual data. So just like before, work order estimate data is used to create firm quotes, budgetary quotes, and invoices, and actual data is used to create customer work orders or invoices. We haven't actually started this job, so we only have estimates, so I'm going to select estimates, create my document, and let's take a look at what the new document looks like. You can now create an invoice directly from a quote on a what you see is what you get. We also have new icons with each line. The edit pencil is to edit the line, the I is to show or hide, and the $ will illuminate some financial aspect associated with that line. So let's take a look at managing and setting terms. Here we can go into the manage terms window and add whatever we want. We provide you with a list. You can use the list as it is, or you can modify it, replace it with your own information. So you can set terms that you can then use on all your subsequent quotes and invoices. So it's really convenient to allow you to be consistent. So here we have the invoice as it sits right now. with all the labor and the parts. Let's take a look at the history. We can see what we've quoted. So let's assume I've sent the quote out to the customer and they've given us the thumbs up. So now I want to invoice the customer for the parts only because I require 100% upfront. From the quote, I'm going to generate an invoice and I'm going to hide the items I don't want to show on the invoice. And I'm using the eyeball to do that. As in the past, we can issue invoices, but if you decide you issued it in error, you can now unissue it. You don't have to delete it and start all over. So unissue is really a nice feature. We have the list of the created documents, and we can go in and receive payments against invoices just like we could in the past. And now we have the ability to define a payment method, and this actually works in conjunction with the QuickBooks integration. So if you're using the QuickBooks integration, you'll be able to take nice advantage of this payment method drop down. And if you're not using it, you can take advantage of it. So here we're receiving a payment via wire transfer, and we can see that the payment's been applied to the invoice, and now it's time to work the job. Let's apply some labor hours to squawk number 1, which is replace the transponder, and let's go into the parts section and pick the transponder part from inventory. And again, you'll notice that the list price in our inventory for this item is $2,000. But again, let's remember that we had applied a pricing override to this item of $1,850, and you'll notice that the icon here is green to indicate that there's a pricing override in effect. So now that we've done some actual work, I can jump back to the customer documents and I can unhide those labor hours that I initially hid, so I could send out a quote for the equipment only, and perhaps I want to invoice my customer based on the original estimates, or perhaps I want to invoice my customer based on actuals. So here we are with the picture for actuals, and I can go in and edit line items and do whatever I need to do, just like you could in the previous system, but just it's way more easier to do it here because it's all right in front of you and you're not hopping around from screen to screen. So now I'll make one final adjustment to the pricing and I'll create a final invoice for my customer. So in creating the final invoice, you notice that we have the ability to cascade prior payments. What's great is you don't have to cascade all the various discounts that you created through your perfect quote, because invoices are generated from quotes or invoices are generated from work orders. So all of the work that you did the first go around to create that perfect document flows perfectly, wonderfully into your invoice. So it just makes things so much easier. And here we have some new capabilities to manipulate the output. And here we're implementing the payment method that we talked about at the beginning of this presentation. You have the ability to manage your list of payments. Once you issue a document, in the past the only thing you could do is delete it, but now you can unissue it. So if you make a mistake, you can just unissue it and fix it. So here we're receiving a payment. We have new drop downs for payment method, which will work really nicely for folks that are integrating with QuickBooks. And as always, you can delete payment transactions and provide reasons for why the deletion took place. But one of the new additions in this release is we're showing you the payment transaction history, so you can see what all the payments that were made and what got deleted and when and by whom, and it really ties things up very nicely. Okay, that's the end of this video. I hope that you found this useful, and I hope you go through this before the software comes out, because there's a lot of pretty significant changes to the visual elements of the system. Functionally, it's all the same with some improvements, but visually it's changed quite a bit. All right, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next video.